Travis Wayne Goodsell. So, as a teenager, went to early morning seminary at Corona High School. Well, it was across the street from the Corona High School. It was the Corona, I guess it was our stake center. Yeah. I lived across the freeway on the west side of town. Went to Norco High. And I remembered her name, Leanne Hymas, when I did the video where I showed my class photo of those of us who had adhered to Benson's request to read the Book of Mormon all the way through. Our seminary down there in Southern California encouraged us to read the Book of Mormon all the way through, and those who did had their photo taken, and there I was with my stash, and it was sent to President Benson to let him know who the identities are of the people who read the Book of Mormon all the way through. And whether he used that or remembered my face out of all the others when I submitted for my mission, I doubt it. But nonetheless, we were told in seminary when we got to the third Nephi, it was a seminary instructor who had developed the parallels of the Book of Mormon with the latter days, because of Benson's talk that he gave back in those days, or one of his talks. He was big on the Book of Mormon, obviously. And so he said that the events in the Book of Mormon that led up to the coming of Jesus in America are parallel to the events leading up to Jesus's coming in the latter days. And so the manuals had the parallel chart, which you can now obtain online in our day of Google search. If not, go to the church's website and see it there. And there's some things missing. And it's something that if Mormons actually understood the difference that Joseph Smith was trying to teach us, that Mormons would realize the horror that they are in. But if we were to take the Book of Mormon literally, as President Benson told us to, we'd realize that there would be a Mormon, because it's parallel, right? So, Book of Mormon, literal history, but a parallel of the events leading up to Jesus Christ coming. So a Mormon will come to the Salt Lake Valley, stand on the internet wall, warning Mormons of the great and abominable church and the signs in the heavens that are coming and that are there for the latter days, and other prophecies. Samuel the Lamanite. Hold on, I gotta stop here. And so, those of you who know your Book of Mormon know exactly how Samuel the Lamanite is involved in that he prophesies to the Nephites there in Zarahemla on the wall of the destructions that are to come, and warning them of signs in the heavens, of the birth and the death, And so when Jesus comes and makes Nephi the leader of the church, he asked for the records of Samuel the Lamanite. And of course they didn't write them. They didn't believe in them. And so Jesus condemns them, and they immediately wrote them. Because Book of Mormon, literal history, therefore, that's why it got put into the Book of Mormon. And so another thing Mormons miss in this parallel is chapter 7 events. You see that there's election fraud, an attempt to coup the government, and the President of the United States getting murdered, and the destruction of America, nonetheless, despite not being couped. You're not reading your Book of Mormon? And the people were divided one against another, that they did separate one from another into tribes, every man according to his family and his kindred and friends, and thus they destroy the government of the land. It could be states. We've already seen that. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I want a national divorce. But they're doing exactly what they threatened they were going to do to America. Our government has been couped, in case you didn't notice. It's being held hostage. We are being threatened. They have destroyed us. The Constitution has been overthrown. Not just Roe v. Wade, but the Disrespect for Marriage Act and other things that has destroyed the constitutional rights to us as citizens. So, did you see that this was part of the Book of Mormon prophecy? No? How come? Why didn't Nelson come out and tell this? How come? And then you have the great destructions on the American continent, the United States of America. Whether it's from the day that shall burn as an oven, whether it's from the Civil War, with this destruction of the government, or climate change, with climate change destruction, all of which are happening. Doesn't matter. And so, most Mormons use Matthew chapter 24 because chapter 25 doesn't mean anything to them. They don't see how that explains literalness of the events of the latter days like 24 does. So the foolish virgins, yeah, you can create any meaning you want to fit your belief system. And so I'm a foolish virgin, for example. Mormons believe that I'm an apostate Korahor, and therefore will be denied into Zion when it comes. Well, Salt Lake City is Zion, Temple Square, Zion. And so I will be denied living here in Salt Lake City? That's what the church is actually planning. That's why they've been buying up the land for temples, is so that they can get their kingdom back. And so when the government falls, the church then creates their tribe and gets their kingdom back. And then those who are not wanting to be Mormon, you get the boot. Or you get locked up in the dungeons and they drink your blood. And so, let's get to something. Here we are. Psalm 29. it tells us the sun shall be darkened, moon shall not give her light, stars fall from heaven, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of glory. An angel shall sound a trumpet, shall gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to another. And then we talk about fig trees. That has nothing to do with events of the latter days. But we are told that this generation shall see everything fulfilled. And so we are not told that this sign is a star conjunction in heaven, because it's the sign that Isaiah tells us about, the birth sign. And that John the Revelator is extremely precise in describing that star sign conjunction. Revelation chapter 12, 1, 2, and 5. Joseph Smith translation moves 5 to verse 3. That's part of the sign. In the Book of Mormon, oh, there's the pattern. But because of the prophets of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Mormons don't know how to study their scriptures to make that connection that I just did. Because it's the learning of the Jews. This was written by a Jew. This was written before the existence and creation of Constantine's Christianity. Christianity and Christian interpretation and Christian replacement, to turn this into literal history, had not yet existed on the face of the earth yet. So the Jew who was writing this had no concept of Christian replacement that was coming. He was using the learning of the Jews. He was using prophecy, not literal history. The events of the birth of Jesus was not literal history. Jesus Christ is not the fulfillment of Jewish prophecy of a Christ. You have Google search nowadays. You can look up Jewish Christ. Should we take time doing that? We're at 13 minutes with the segmented videos. Or is Google search going to be slow and coming up? Looks like it's going to be slow and coming up. But if you're going to study the Book of Mormon, when it says it's in the learning of the Jews, you kind of need to know the learning of the Jews before you begin your study of the Book of Mormon. Otherwise, you're going to use, I don't know, say like Christian interpretation on the Book of Mormon. And after all, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, claiming to be Christian, says that you are supposed to interpret the Book of Mormon as a Christian. Just non-Trinitarian Jesus instead of the Jewish Christ. Jewish Messiah. Wikipedia. Messiah in Judaism. And it says, the Messiah in Judaism is a savior Jesus, Yah of salvation, no, is a savior and liberator figure in Jewish eschatology who is believed to be the future redeemer of the Jewish people. Jeremiah 23, starting verse 5. The concept of messianism originated in Judaism. No, the Egyptians. And in the Hebrew Bible, a Messiah is a king or a high priest of Israel? No. And king, Melech. High priest, Zadok. Melech, Zadok. Melchizedek. Traditionally anointed to christen, thus the Christ, with holy anointing oil. However, messiahs were not exclusively Jewish. Who's writing this? As the Hebrew Bible refers to Cyrus the Great, king of Persia, as a messiah, because he decreed the Jews to go back to Jerusalem and build a temple. In Jewish eschatology, the Messiah is a future Jewish king from the Davidic line. Isaiah, Jeremiah, combined with the law of the Jews, Deuteronomy 18:15 through 19, who is expected to be anointed with holy oil, and rule the Jewish people during the Messianic age, the millennium, and the world to come. The Messiah is often referred to as King Messiah. Joseph Smith is the only one in all Scripture who refers to him as King Emmanuel, the name that Isaiah gives him, which is the sun god at noonday. And then they're trying to claim that Jewish messianism gave birth to Christianity. No, it didn't. No, it was Constantine. Constantine is the great and abominable church, creating Jesus as the great and abominable Christ. And then Islam, Muhammad became the false prophet also, claiming to be the man like Moses, going to the top of the mountain and receiving the Quran, and then being a militant abomination, converting by threats of death and burning of the villages if they didn't conform and comply, and then building a mosque, the Dome of the Rock, on top of the Jewish temple. So every Mormon should have that basic understanding when the Book of Mormon says in 1 Nephi chapter 1 verse 2, it's in the learning of the Jews about the Messiah. Oops. So what's also interesting is that Matthew warns Mormons. Verse 24, for in the latter days there shall arise false Christs, false prophets, who will deceive the very elect. Aren't you the very elect, Mormons? So who are the false prophets deceiving you with a false Christ? When the Book of Mormon, the keystone of Mormonism, says we're the learning of the Jews, and I just read to you the learning of the Jews concerning our Christ. He's human parents, not Jesus. So Jesus is a false Christ of Christianity. What's the name of the church again? Nelson got up at the pulpit of conference and demanded we say the full name, because who's angry now? After 200 years, Jesus is finally angry with nicknames. What was the name of Joseph Smith's church again? Oh, you don't know because Brigham Young had everything edited and corrected. The founding Mormon corrected because he was wrong. So Mormons were told there in Matthew, when Brigham Young tells you that Jesus is in the desert, don't go. 24. All Mormons were told, you were warned, you didn't listen. And so, 2 Nephi, chapter 3. It's about Joseph Smith. We all know this. It's a prophecy, because it's literal history now. Oops. Now do you see where you went wrong? This was written by Joseph Smith Sr., because he had to rewrite the 116 pages because Junior let Martin Harris steal them because his child died. That's no excuse. And then went to the Methodist for comfort because that was Emma's family's religion. And then the Methodist preacher said there are no such things as visions and prophecies in these days, and so you were arrested as a glass looker. Get out of our church and get out of our city. Go find another harmony to live in Susquehanna River. As the cover story for losing the 116 pages. There's a harmony north of Pittsburgh. That's the harmony he was at. It's halfway between Sidney Rigdon and the farm. It's right there. There's a road that connects them. And so, because of 9/11, 1826, Senior, as the Master Mason of the Lodge of Canandaigua, New York, is required to save the life of William Morgan and finish the book that they were working on, warning us of the latter days and the threat to destroy our government, and with a coup and election fraud, and ta-da, 3 Nephi chapter 7. And so this is what I've failed to get across to Mormons. That the Book of Mormon, as the learning of the Jews, is all prophecy. That Lehi's dream is the birth sign, which means the beginning of the latter days, which John tells us specifically is 23rd of September 2017. It's not his actual birth, it's the beginning of the latter days. It's an 8-year period. That's why the Jews celebrate Passover, and we just had Sukkot, which on the very last day of Sukkot is the additional Jewish holy day celebrating the end of Sukkot, thus making it 8 days instead of 7. And that's when Hamas attacked Israel. The gathering. And so, I told you, showed you from the scriptures, it's the gathering, the man like Moses. That Jeremiah 23 tells us, you're not going to talk about the Exodus anymore because he finally came, the man like Moses, whom the law, Deuteronomy 18, 15 through 19, tells us about. And that Deuteronomy passage is what Joseph Smith is telling us in the Joseph Smith history. Verse 40. The messenger, who's described as Emmanuel, the sun at noonday, said his name was Nephi, because again, is Joseph Smith needing to be corrected because he's wrong? Or is he the founder of our church that 2 Nephi 3 tells us? So unfortunately, too many Mormons betray Joseph and say that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one true church, and if they say that Joseph Smith is wrong, then Joseph Smith is wrong. It's Christian. It's Jesus, not the Jewish Christ. And so you miss the Acts passage that takes you to Deuteronomy 18:15 through 19. And Joseph Smith uses cut off. He's being clever. You have to do study to see what he's talking about there. Because there's changes. Changes. And so in verse 5, Joseph Smith Sr. is writing here now. Do we now understand this? Is it okay? Because it's not okay for Mormons who are hardcore and refuse to accept Joseph Smith as the learning of the Jews. To refuse to accept the Book of Mormon in the learning of the Jews. That I just read to you from Wikipedia, which is the learning of the Jews of the Jews. So are the Jews wrong? Did the author who wrote it, is he wrong? It's Christian, but not Constantine Christian, right? Because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one true religion, and so those Trinity Christians don't know what they're talking about. You're supposed to replace the learning of the Jews with non-Trinitarian Christianity. You see my frustration with Mormons. And so, Joseph of Egypt obtained a promise of the Lord that out of the fruit of his loins, the Lord God would, here's the Deuteronomy pattern, raise up a righteous branch unto the house of Israel. Not the Messiah, in the learning of the Jews, man like Moses, who would be raised up unto David in the latter days. But a branch which was to be broken off. So who is this guy? Yeah, it's Joseph Smith Jr. We all know this. And so then, here's the Messiah part. That the Messiah should be made manifest. Anybody ever read Moroni chapter 10, verses 3 through 5? Verse 4 specifically. Where's spiritual witness again? Should be made manifest unto them in the latter days. That's the learning of the Jews Christ. It's not Jesus. There it is in the Book of Mormon that says it's in the learning of the Jews and is the keystone of Mormonism. And so this is the scary thing that Mormons do not realize, is that yes, you are being distracted at the moment with the war in Israel. And Netanyahu is purposely being merciful. He had said days ago that they had 24 hours to get the hell out because they're coming in. And he's waited. He's hesitated. Hamas is now saying, oh, we promise we'll let some of the hostages go that we've raped and tortured. A girl has been in the news yesterday. They finally released a video of one of the hostages. She's been raped, she's been tortured, and now she's on camera to show that they're serious. And so thank God for Mitt Romney, because nobody's listening to me, who came out and said that all the punishments to Palestine and the Palestinians, it's Hamas to blame, not Israel. But all of Islam throughout the whole world are ignoring Hamas's first attack and blaming Israel for coming in and defending themselves, trying to claim that the Palestinians are innocent people. Where's Hamas again? They're among the Palestinians. They're using the Palestinians as shields, and the Palestinians are letting them use them as shields. They're not condemning them. They're not fighting them. They have let them in. They have followed their orders. They are complicit. They are not innocent. And so, yes, it's tragic that little kids die. But the parents are the ones guilty because they support Hamas, a terrorist organization. But this is a distraction, Mormons, because Christian interpretation believes that the war is in Jerusalem, just like Ezekiel 38 says the war will be in Russia and Ukraine. And so Biden refused to go in and help Ukraine because of the Sisters of Fatima. He's Catholic. He knows about the Sisters of Fatima. He was scared to death that Putin would do the nuclear holocaust of the world if he aggravates Putin and enters into the war. And now we have Armageddon, as Catholics are Christian too. And so Biden is only giving weapons and any kind of support that Israel asked for. As we claim, they don't need our help. They don't, but we have our big ships there now. But he still won't send in the troops, even though Hezbollah, another terrorist organization, is attacking Israel. And so Islam, by supporting terrorist activities against the Jews, Israelites, are likewise complicit. All Islam is complicit. And so it's sad that little children are being stabbed to death by their landlord here in America. But that kid is being raised up to be a terrorist of Islam. That's what Muhammad was. Muhammad wasn't a prophet of peace. It was only peace after he burned down the village and murdered the people. That was his understanding of peace. And it's in the Quran. But this is the problem, is that Mormons don't see that anti-Semitic hate and violence are occurring since the war, as it's already occurred since Trump. The Jews are under attack here in America. And Islam knows how to read English. They can read the Book of Mormon. And despite the Church of Jesus Christ saying, hey, we're Christian, we're not Jewish, they read the Book of Mormon, and it says it's in the learning of the Jews. And so how do you think Islam is going to treat the church, who's been obviously lying to them, claiming to be Christian when the Book of Mormon clearly says it's in the learning of the Jews? What do you think they're going to do to Mormons? Who do you think the war in the United States is going to be caused by? Because it's already happened. We got the coup of the government. I did the maps showing you that Islam has Utah at a vulnerable spot if Islam were to strike here in America and in Utah. They're carefully positioned to cut off our transportation in and out of Utah. They are carefully positioned to cut off our access to the hospitals. They are carefully positioned to cut off our electric and power. Well, electric and the power grids. utilities. You know, it's a good thing Nelson came out and said that we're just like Islam. Do you not see that Islam wants to take over the world? They've been doing it through infiltration. People living in the various countries and having children. And then those children getting married and having children. Islam is among the biggest in the nation, in the world. They're more the same than Christianity is. Because you have the Pope who thinks that all Christians are needing to come back to church, the Catholic Church. As you've got over 100 at least different Christian organizations. And then you've got who knows how many who are no longer interested in organized religion but still believe in Jesus. And so this is what we're waiting for. Everything else has happened. Because if you're new and you're like, oh, we're finally in the latter days? Yeah, you kind of missed it. It's almost over. I've been doing videos for a while now. And so, yeah, the sad reality of things. So yeah, I'm still under attack for this. The hate crimes of cyber terrorism. They will not let me go. I am being held hostage through my own laptop. And so I have to do workarounds to try to get things done, and things are obviously getting slowed because of what they've done to me. And it's sad because only the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints knows about me. They're the ones giving the orders to the YouTube Mormon employee. They're the only ones who are laundering money through Microsoft and Google to have this problem that I'm faced with. It's called money laundering, by the way. When the church steals tithing money, which 119 is a protection racket, it's priestcraft, defines it right there in section 119. And Mormons miss it. I freely give this money to the church. It's a donation. Yeah, try not paying your donation and telling your bishop straight out, nope, I'm not a full tithe payer, bishop. Just sign the temple recommend. I'm not a full tithe payer. And see what his response is. Oh, okay. At least you're spiritually thinking celestially. So we'll give you this temple recommend for the next 2 years. Because I can see that you're trying. Oh, God. I'm Mormon born and raised, and yet Mormons still try to deceive me about Mormonism. They still tell me I'm the other, that I've somehow lost the spirit, that I don't know, that I'm being mean. They make all kinds of excuses not to listen to my videos, especially not this far in. And so, yeah, all I've done is told you that the Book of Mormon is true. And the learning of the Jews. And Mormons are seeking to destroy me. I am here because the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has been ordering Mormons and paying Mormons who were faithful and successful to their assignment to destroy me, to attempt to murder me. I was indefinitely incarcerated for 6 years of my life. I didn't go to trial. There was no hearings. I was locked up, disappeared, and tortured, trying to murder me for 6 years of my life. And then I got out. And then they did it again. Over and over again, ordering people to do their dirty work for them. And I ended up in the shelter. And here I am now. And those 2 women lost their jobs because they failed. But Gail Miller, she got paid for what she did to me. And she was rewarded by the church for what she did to me. But those 2 women, they were naughty. You should have seen the look on the one woman's face who was to pretend that we were trying to get me out of the shelter into an apartment. She was purposely giving me apartments that she knew were not available. And so we'd go around, driving around to the different apartments that she knew was unavailable. And then we'd go there and they'd say, well, there's nothing available. Just wasting my time, giving me false hope. And then we came to the one apartment and the manager was late. And he was grumpy. And he said, didn't you see the sign? Yeah, because the big banner says, contact you. No, not that sign. But then he was walking away, going into his office. He had enough of us, trying to kick us out. And said, we do have these other apartments. It's 1,000 apartments. And so we went. Oops. We just happen to have an apartment open for you that you can afford because of what the church had done to you. See, she had told me there was no money to help me out and get me into the apartment. I wasn't supposed to get in. But because of what the church did, because of what the church ordered to get me into the shelter, I had the money to do it. She never paid me back. But, yeah, I got in. And so they fired her. But I came home having to do it myself to come out and sign some documents here. I came back to the shelter, and the other woman was there and talked with me, and I told her that I was being abandoned by the other woman, and then she said, oh, yeah, I've got the money. Yeah, I can take care of all of that. Oops, she wasn't supposed to. She hadn't gotten the message. They didn't know that she would be, And so then she got me the apartment, paid for the other stuff. And I had to force her to keep her promise to me because they were upset with her that I had gotten this apartment. And so if she wasn't wanting to pay the first month's rent, I told you, you made a promise to me. You're going to keep it. And she kept it. And she lost her job too. As I tried to... they refused to help me move. Instead, they told me to hire a moving company, and they would pay for it. She would pay for it. And I said, that's going to be a lot of money. Nobody liked me at the shelter, and yet they were trying to keep me there. But, you know, so much abuse. All because Mormons are not using the learning of the Jews. They are following the orders of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so, I know there are Mormons who know the church is false, but continue to perpetuate the lie. So they go around and tell Mormons, and they're the ones who are overly dramatic. The church is so true. I had spiritual witnesses that the church is true and the Book of Mormon is literal history. This is such an awesome church. I'm so glad that I'm the chosen one. Those people, they know the church is a fraud. But then you get Kwaku and types like Kwaku who are converted to the church believing that it's Christian because they don't understand the learning of the Jews. And so they are loyal, but they don't know it's a fraud until they're confronted by critics of the church who debate them live on the internet and expose that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the Gospel Topics essays threw Brigham Young under the bus and said that he's a racist. But he was just following the times. We don't know the ways of God. Joseph Smith gave priesthood to the blacks, but we don't know the mind of God. That was just the mind back then, the cultural traditions. The church got upset with us in the September 6th specifically for humanizing Joseph Smith. And yet they've now humanized Brigham Young to justify his racism. It's so sad that Mormons cannot see through that. But yeah, you do have the two main groups, and then there are subgroups within those, but regardless, you have those who worship Lucifer, calling him Jesus, and then you have the Mormons who are just absolutely clueless and that refuse to look up the Wikipedia article on the learning of the Jews concerning the Messiah. So, alright, I don't want to go too far. I've got to go running, and then I've got to spend my day struggling with the slow speed of pace because of the cyber attacks, because of this. And so Joseph Smith is not supernatural. 2 Nephi chapter 3. And yet it's talking about the future Mormon, guys. The Messiah of Mormonism. He's not supernatural either. And so the manner in which you treat me is exactly the manner in which you would treat Joseph Smith. Despite all the wording that you draw near to him with your lips for. I know the truth. I know exactly how you would have treated Joseph Smith. And you're treating him exactly as your third great grandparents did. The ones who murdered him. The Danites. The secret combination. Alrighty, another day.